alusta niin asti.
Yeah.
Siellä on korruptio politiikassa ja rikollisuus koko maassa ovat vuosikymmeniä saatossa vain pahentuneet. Biafra kanssa haluaa sanottua tällaisesta irti ja perustettavaksi vapaan demokraattisen valtion. Eli haluaa oma demokraattisen valtio, jossa valitsee yrittämisen vapaus ja uskonnollinen toleranssi. Kaikki uskontojen kohtaan, jossa on suora kansainvälinen valittu parlamentti, riippumaton tuomioistuinlaitos, oma asevelvollisuuteen perustuva armeija. Monipuoluejärjestelmä, ja jossa ihmisoikeuksia kunnioitetaan ja valitaan. Tällä hetkellä sellainen ei ole Nigeriassa ollenkaan. Se on toiminut vuosikymmeniä. Ja UK on ihmisoikeussopimus, lapsen oikeuksien yleissopimus ja KP-sopimus tuleva olemaan.
You know, when I saw this video of Simon Èkpá, defending himself in court, in a cross-examination section in court, I just laughed. And why I laughed was because of, the zoo government and their media propaganda lately on how the Prime Minister Simon Èkpá Njoko denied Biafra. I laughed at them. Do not forget that lately, the way the TVC crooners, has been carrying Simon Èkpá. Remember, TVC belongs to the zoo president, in the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's the owner of TVC, I guess so. But that is by the way. The way they've been carrying Simon Èkpá as if their life depends on it, to the extent that they brought a controversy against Simon Èkpá, that Simon Èkpá denied Biafra. Now, I don't understand the Finnish language, but if you listen carefully in that video, you hear some of the things. In fact, with the other videos that I'll be dropping later on this particular, video, Simon Èkpá introduced himself as the Prime Minister of Biafra. He didn't introduce himself as the Prime Minister of IPOB. For those of you who are still carrying the propaganda of the zoo, let me tell you, before this whole court thing, before Simon Èkpá was arrested by the Finnish government, Simon Èkpá has made his stance very clear. When he left IPOB, in fact, he was just a speaker in the Radio Biafra. When he left them, he said he is no longer running IPOB. In fact, then he was even running the de facto government. He still clarified his stance on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. He respects him, but anything he's doing is not in line. They are totally different. They are running a totally different government. But he gave his full acknowledgement for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. To the extent, that was why, he became popular, because he was like his son to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu even spoke about Simon Èkpá Njoko, but he never for one day claimed that he is the member of the IPOB. So I wonder why the DOS and the rest of them are trying to make a crazy statement or ridicule Simon Èkpá because of his unfinished government. Look at him. He is carrying Biafra to international scene. And let me tell you, before you finish watching this video, you will understand why Simon Èkpá, is seen as one of the strongest man. He did something very, very unique in court today. In fact, to the amazement of those, those people you saw there, the people that were cross-examining him, He calmed down. He taught them about Biafra. He taught them about, what Biafrans are suffering in the hands of the zoo. Simon Èkpá said he was going to do it. And the reality is that he is beginning to do it. And also, if you watch that video clearly, you can replay that video. You will hear where he mentions something like Musa. So I guess he was talking about, how these people invaded the land and quite innocent people. And one thing about Simon Èkpá is that he is giving evidence on what is happening. He's not just talking for talking's sake. That system you're seeing in the laptop, that he's carrying there are filled with evidences against the zoo government. Let us now go deeply on what really happened in the secret trial today.
Today being the 6th of June of 2025, the trial of Mr. Simon has continued in the Parijahame District Court, and in this video, we shall be going through all of the main events and every single thing that transpired in the court of law today. This video is going to be a very, very exciting one, so I'll advise you to sit back, relax, and enjoy, because a lot of drama and a lot of activities played out in court today, to the point that Mr. Simon got really, really angry and infuriated and wanted to probably slap a witness that came out to testify against him. So with all of that being said, let's kickstart this video and kickstart the court session today. Yes, the court session kickstarted very early this morning at around 9:30 a.m. The prosecuting lawyer was present. Simon and his legal counsel team was equally very much present in the court hearings this morning. The court session started by the prosecuting lawyer making an introductory speech. He states, and I quote, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant before you is charged with terrorism. The evidence clearly shows that they planned and carried out a violent act that caused significant harm and terror in the southeastern region of Nigeria. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate choice to hurt others. A 6-year prison sentence isn't just punishment. It's about protecting our community and protecting the lives of individuals and citizens of Nigeria, particularly the southeastern region of that country. A 6-year prison sentence isn't just a punishment. It's about protecting our community and showing that such actions have serious consequences. This sentence will send a message that terrorism will not be tolerated." The prosecuting lawyer also went a step further to tell the judge that we ask you to permit us bring in our fourth witness, an individual codenamed T4, who happens to be an officer from the NBI, the National Bureau of Investigation. So we want the fourth witness, codenamed T4, to continue with his testimony from the last court proceedings. Yes, the presiding judge responded by saying, "I grant you the permission to bring in your fourth witness, T4, codenamed T4. Feel free to bring in this individual and let them be brought to the stand, and let every necessary right be done and executed perfectly." So T4 was brought into the stand. He started by asking the judge to permit him bring up documents the NBI managed to get after investigating Simon for over 4 months. Yes, just in case you don't understand, a witness was brought to the stand, a witness codenamed T4, which we believe should be testifier 4. This T4 happens to be an officer, an individual from the NBI, the National Bureau of Investigation, the investigative department that carried out thorough research and in-depth analysis on Simon's data on his social media platform. So this is T4. He was brought into the stand, and T4 is claiming that he has a series of documents that he's going to present to the court of law. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what follows suit afterwards. The judge responded by saying, "I give you my permission. Feel free to present documents or exhibits as you've gathered in the past couple of months." After hearing this permission from the judge, T4 brought out a pile of documents with Exhibit 1 written on it. T4 continued by saying, "My lord, this is Exhibit 1 and it contains necessary tweets from Twitter, now called X, to prove that this man, while pointing at Mr. Simon, is not a content creator as claimed, but instead is the leader of a terror group in Nigeria." T4 brings out a document and continued by saying, "My lord, on the 6th of November of 2024, before the NBI arrested this man, the defendant, which is Simon, made a post on Twitter where Simon wrote to the president of the country, the president of our country, our dear nation. So this man wrote to our president informing him about the declaration of the USB. Tifo asked the judge, "My lord, permit me to read out the content of this tweet." The judge said, "Go ahead, please. Feel free to read out the content of that tweet." Tifo raised the document and reads from it. And like I said, this document, this tweet Tifo is about to read, is a tweet released or published by Simon himself on the 6th of November of 2024, which is last year, a couple of weeks before he was arrested. So Tifo, the witness, is about to read out a tweet that Simon signed and petitioned by himself as the Prime Minister of the USB movement. And this is supposed to be done to challenge the fact that Simon isn't just a content creator, he's a leader of a factional group in Nigeria. So let's go back to the courtroom and see the content of this tweet that Tifo, testifier 4, is about to read up in the courtroom session. It reads, "The government of the USB is contacting you to inform you about the overall aims and goals of the USB Republic government in exile and its international legal personality, and the impending restoration of the USB under the auspices of the international recognized referendum to be concluded the last week of November of 2024. Unlike other sectionist governments in Africa before and since, USB was recognized by 5 United Nations member states." And this is a tweet released or published by Mr. Simon, where he wrote to the president of that country, the president of Finland, informing him of the fact that him and his group wants him, that is, he wants the president to recognize the establishment and the declaration of the movement there in Finland. Hope this explanation is actually straight to the point and very easy to understand. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit afterwards. Yes, because things are going to get extremely exciting and intense in the courtroom in the next couple of moments and minutes. So Tifo continued by saying, "This document had his signature," that is the tweet he just read in the courtroom. So he's saying that this tweet, the document attached in this tweet, had the signature and name of Simon, the defendant. This simply means that this man is not a content creator. At this point, Simon's lawyer stood up and said, "I stand before you today to request the court grant my client the right to cross-examine the witness." Yes. So the moment Tifo was claiming or making allegations that Simon isn't just a content creator, the lawyer representing Simon got really angry and he had to stand up and interrupt Tifo's statement. Hope this is very clear and easy to understand. Hope this is actually very clear. So let's continue. Let's go back to the statement made by Simon's lawyer, because he interrupted Tifo when he was making that assertion. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what follows suit. So Simon's lawyer, his lawyer stood up and said, "I stand before you today to request that the court grant my client the right to cross-examine the witness identified as Tifo. The testimony provided by Tifo is crucial to the prosecution's case, and a thorough cross-examination is essential to ensure a fair trial and protect my client's rights. We believe that cross-examining Tifo is necessary to uncover inconsistencies in their statements, clarify ambiguities, and fully explore the context surrounding their testimony. Furthermore, the cross-examination will allow us to challenge the credibility of Tifo and reveal any potential biases or motivations that may influence their statements. Denying my client the right to cross-examine Tifo would severely limit our ability to present a complete and accurate defenses. Therefore, we respectfully request that the court grant us the opportunity to conduct a cross-examination." Yes, just in case you don't understand what is currently going on here, the lawyer of Mr. Simon is telling the judge that, "See, I would want you to permit my client, which is Simon, to cross-examine Tifo, who is a witness coming from the NBI. Yes, I want my client to cross-examine this testifier, and let's see the info and the data he has to share in the courtroom." Hope this is actually very clear to understand. So let's go back to the court session and see what followed suit. So the presiding judge gave his permission. Yes, he told Simon's lawyer to feel free to bring in your client to come up and cross-examine this Tifo, as case may be. So Simon walked up to the stand to cross-examine the witness. So Simon, this is actually very clear. I'm trying to paint the picture in your head. So Simon walked up to the stands. In a courtroom, basically, we have two different stands. We have one for a witness from the prosecuting legal counsel team, and we also have a stand for the defendant's counsel team. So the witness from the prosecuting legal counsel team, which is T4, was standing in a stance already, and Simon had to go to the other stance, which is opposite or directly facing T4. So this is going to be a very, very interesting piece of conversation or cross-examination that will definitely play out or follow suit in the next moment. Hope this is actually very, very clear to understand and to follow. Anyways, if you find this video interesting and captivating, please do well to subscribe and turn on post notifications so that you get notified whenever we drop any follow-up videos just like this one. Yes, so subscribe and turn on post notifications. Thanks. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what follows suit. So Simon walked up to his own stand, and right now he's facing T4 face to face. So let's see what follows suit, and let's see the cross-examination and how it played out in the courtroom. So T4 started the whole conversation between himself and Simon. T4 started by saying, I have evidence that he is not just a content creator. That is, he has evidence, that is, T4 has evidence that Simon is not just a content creator as claims. So T4 said, I have evidence that this man is not just a content creator as he claims, but rather the prime minister of a separatist group in Nigeria. His social media posts are not merely for entertainment. They are calls to actions for his followers to support his political agenda. So just in case you don't know what is currently going on here, T4 is claiming that Simon isn't just a content creator. Yes, he's saying that Simon, Mr. Simon, you are not a content creator. Stop lying to us. Stop using the word content creator to deceive us in the courtroom. You are not a content creator, and I have evidence, series of evidence to prove that you are not one. So let's go back to the courtroom and see the responses and see what followed suit, and let's see how Simon handled that allegation or the statement coming from T4. So the moment T4 was making that statement, the moment T4 was saying, I have evidence that this man is not a content creator and whatsoever, Simon objected. Yeah, so let's go to the courtroom and see what followed suit. So Simon replied by saying, objection, Your Honor. This is a mischaracterization of my work. I am a content creator. Any individual who records video, who writes stories, who reacts to news, who reacts to musical videos, who reacts to any political news, who make content, who shoot videos and upload them onto the website or onto any social media platform is classified as a content creator. So my posts are purely for entertainment and informational purposes only. T4 replied by saying Simon has used his platform to spread misinformation and rally support for a separatist movement. For example, in his post, he refers to himself as a leader and encourages others, his followers, to take action against the government. This is not the behavior of a mere content creator. And these are the words coming from T4, where he's trying to claim that, Simon, you are not a content creator, because on that page, on your page, your social media page on Twitter, you call yourself a prime minister and you issue out commands, you sign documents, you sign proposals which is being sent to the government of Finland and whatsoever. You cannot be classified as a content creator. You are a leader of a factional group, and this is the point T4 was trying to portray in the court of law. Yes, so let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. So Simon was like, Your Honor, I must clarify that my posts are satirical and meant to provoke thought. I am simply sharing my views on social media platforms. This is a nice response coming from Simon. Yes, he's trying to portray the fact that he is a content creator because he posts stuffs on social media platforms like Twitter or thereabouts. So he's trying to claim that he's a content creator, and the courtroom or the witness, codename T4, shouldn't take that away from him. So let's go back to the courtroom and see how T4 responded, or let's see how T4 replied to that statement. So T4 replied by saying, but Simon, your followers interpret your words as directives. You have a significant influence over them, and that influence is dangerous. You cannot deny that your posts have incited unrest in the southeastern region of Nigeria and the whole of Nigeria in its real sense. Simon replied by saying, I disagree. My audience knows that my content is meant to entertain and inform them, I have never intended to incite violence or unrest. I'm not responsible for how others interpret my post. Wow. As you can see, Simon is trying to give reasons why he doesn't have the orders, he doesn't have the power to make people or to compel people take decisions based on his post on Twitter. Yes. So he's trying to say, I've never forced or compelled anyone to do my biddings. I only post and react to news. And if anybody take actions from my post, I cannot be held responsible because it doesn't concern me. I only react to news. And if people react to my update, it's left for them and not me. So the judge had to quickly jump in and calm the whole situation because he noticed that Simon and this guy's conversation was getting very intense. So the judge said, Tifo, do you have specific examples of Simon's post that supports your claim? Tifo responded by saying, yes, Your Honor. So Tifo also, he searched through his very first exhibit, the exhibit titled number 1, and searched for a particular document which he brought. He was like, yes, Your Honor, look at this. In one post stated, Simon made a claim that, and I quote, join the movement for freedom, we will not be silenced. And Tifo continued by saying, as you can clearly see, this is a clear call to action, not just a content creation effort. It shows his intent to lead a group, not just entertain. And these are the exact words coming from Tifo. And Simon responded by saying, that post was taken out of context. I was discussing freedom of expression, not leading a separatist movement. My content is about social issues, not political leadership. Oh, wow. Tifo continued by saying, but Simon, your repeated references to leadership and your followers' reactions indicate otherwise. You cannot separate your influence from your content. The judge had to jump in and said, let's keep this focused. Simon, do you have any evidence to support your claim that you are merely a content creator? And this is coming from the judge. So now the judge really wants to understand. He wants Simon to present a series of documents and facts why the courtroom and the legal counsel team from the prosecuting department should take him as just a content creator. Yes. So they want Simon to present documents. And this is where things go really, really exciting. So let's see what let's see the response that Simon presented. So back to the courtroom, back to the court session. Simon continued by saying, or he replied by saying, yes, Your Honor. I've brought examples of my work that show my focus on entertainment and education. My videos include discussions on various topics, from pop culture to social issues, without any political agenda. Wow, this is a very, very massive response coming from Simon. This feels like this man was properly prepped. He was prepared for this cross-examination. It feels like his lawyer has informed him on what to say and things he shouldn't say and how he should clearly defend himself, because this is Simon defending himself and not his lawyer. His lawyer hasn't stepped in to do any defending. This is Simon handling and tackling the responses coming from Tifo by himself, all by himself. Things are going to definitely get interesting in this in the next couple of minutes. So I will advise you to get yourself a bottle of Coke and a pack of popcorn, because this is going to be a roller coaster ride going forward. And like I said, if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please do well to subscribe and turn on post notifications, because we'll give you latest updates just like this one and every single thing that unfolds in the courtroom. So let's go back to the court session and see what follows suit, because this is where things are going to get interesting. So at this point, let's go back to the courtroom and see what follows suit. So the moment the judge asked Simon, let's keep this focused. Simon, do you have any evidence to support your claim that you are merely a content creator? So the presiding judge is asking Simon to present documents that shows that he's just a content creator to the courtroom. So this is where Simon's lawyer had to jump in. Simon's lawyer knew that there's something coming up that Simon cannot probably defend. So his lawyer had to jump in and made a certain statement. Let's go back to the courtroom. So at this point, Simon's lawyer had to jump in and he started with a conversation with a topic. He said, and I quote, "Our Honor, the prosecution's case rests on misinterpretation of my client's social media presence. Simon's posts, while sometimes provocative, are clearly satire and commentary, not incitement. The witness claims are unsubstantiated and lack evidence of direct calls to violence or illegal activity, We believe the evidence will show Simon is a content creator and not a political leader. Hope you guys are paying attention to what is currently happening right now in the courtroom. So Simon's lawyer had to jump in and calm the whole situation before Simon would try to present any document to the court claiming that he's not a content creator. If you're paying attention, you notice that Simon's lawyer said sometimes Simon's posts can be provocative. Yes, his posts can be provocative. That shows that his posts sometimes can trigger emotions, it can trigger reactions. And this is quite different from what Simon himself was saying. So the lawyer knew what he needed to say to calm the whole situation down and to still put Simon in track in his cross-examination by claiming that his post can be provocative at some point in time. Yes, this is a massive one coming from the legal counsel team of Simon. These guys have showed and have pulled up a massive feat in the courtroom by presenting very, very clear and articulated backups and references while trying to counterattack T4 in all of his statements and in all of his remarks. This is a massive one from Simon himself as the suspect and his lawyer. Yes, this is a massive one. Now, let's go back to the courtroom because a lot of drama followed suit. Today's video is going to be long because a lot of things happened today and the courtroom started very early. So we had enough time, we had ample time to make this video. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. But before we do that, if you find this video very, very interesting and engaging, please do well to like this video. And also don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications. So with all of that being said, let's jump back to the courtroom and see every single detailed and every single actions that followed suit after the statement from Simon's lawyer was presented. So the moment Simon's lawyer came out to defend his client, Simon, the prosecuting lawyer had to do the same. He had to step up and defend T4, who happens to be his testifier. So at this point, the prosecuting lawyer followed suit. He stood up by saying, "Your Honor, the defense attempts to portray Simon's actions as mere commentary, but the evidence speaks for itself. The witness T4 has provided concrete examples of Simon's posts that go beyond simple commentary. This post use coded languages, calls to action, and the consistency of self-identification as a leader, all of which indicates a clear intent to influence and mobilize followers." Interestingly, at this point, the courtroom got very intense. The judge had to jump in and calm everyone down, threatening to discontinue the session if it gets heated again. Yes, the presiding judge asked T4 to continue with his submissions. Just in case you don't understand, after the lawyer from T4's legal counsel team, which is the prosecutor, made her statement, the courtroom was tensed. Simon was physically very angry and the judge had to step in and calm everybody down. He threatened that if the whole courtroom becomes tensed again, he will discontinue the court session and fix a later date. So let's go back to the courtroom. Let's continue with the submission. So the judge asked T4 to continue with his submissions, and T4 replied by saying, "Thank you, my lord. On the 10th of October of 2024, you, Simon, released a tweet where you said, and I quote, 'I sacrificed my political career for USB.' You also said, 'I have decided not to take part in the coming elections and focus on Biafra liberation. I have served my people, community, and region since 2012. What does this mean?' And he was asking this question. This question was directed at Mr. Simon, seated or standing in the opposite direction. So the moment Simon wanted to reply or make a statement about that tweet, T4 interrupted him and continued by saying, "Simon, let's visit your 2024 statement. Yes, I want you to actually explain this to me. Explain," and I quote, "I sacrificed my political career for USB. You also said, I've decided not to take part in the coming elections and focus on the USB liberation in Finland. And also you made a statement that I have served my people, community, and region since 2012. I want you, Simon, to explain all of these things to me and how it doesn't relate to allegation of inciting violence." Well, let's listen to what Simon had to say. So Simon replied by saying, "T4, as I've stated before, my words have been taken out of context. When I said I sacrificed my political career, I meant I shifted my focus. I shifted my focus to activism, the USB liberation, I advocate for is a peaceful one, centered on self-determination. Wow, this is a very, very intelligent reply coming from Simon. He used a different word. Yes. So let's repeat his response again, because this is actually very interesting and very, very inciting. So Simon said, T4, as I've stated before, my words have been taken out of context. When I said I sacrificed my political career, I meant I shifted my focus to activism. The USB liberation I advocate for is a peaceful one, centered on self-determination. This is very, very clean. So T4 replied by saying, but your words have been interpreted as support for violent actions. Your followers have engaged in activities that have been classified as terrorism. How do you reconcile your words with those actions? Well, Simon intelligently replied by saying, I condemn all acts of violence. My message has always been about peaceful advocacy. Any actions taken by others do not reflect my views. I cannot be held responsible for the actions of individuals. Hope we all are paying attention of what is currently going on here. So Simon is saying that you shouldn't be held accountable for the actions of other individuals. You shouldn't be held accountable for decisions taken by anybody after reading his post. Wow. So let's go back to the courtroom and see what followed suit. So T4 replied by saying, however, your influence is undeniable. You've cultivated a strong following. How can you claim no responsibility when your words may have inspired those actions? Hope you guys are paying attention, because this is a very, very direct question coming from T4. He really wants to know how Simon would want to remove himself from the actions taken by his followers. You really want to understand why Simon will tell the whole wide world that he has no hands in the actions of his own members, the members that he claims to be their deputy prime minister. So T4 is asking a very, very direct question, very clean and very clear question that Simon always reply with intelligently. So let's go back to the statement from T4. However, your influence is undeniable. You've cultivated a strong following. How can you claim no responsibility when your words may have inspired those actions? So Simon replied by saying, I provide information and express my opinions, but I do not direct or endorse violence. I'm not a terrorist. My work is about raising awareness and advocating for a peaceful change. T4 replied by saying, the phrase Biafra liberation is often associated with extremist groups. Is there any distinction between your vision and theirs? Simon replied by saying, absolutely. My vision is for the USB to be achieved through diplomacy, peaceful protest, and international recognition. We want to establish a society that respects human rights and rule of law. Terrorism has no place in my vision. So T4 continued by saying, you have been accused of using coded languages that could be interpreted as a call to arms. How do you respond to that? Simon replied intelligently by saying, yeah, I understand that my words may be interpreted differently by different people, but I have never intended to incite violence. I have always advocated for peaceful methods of achieving our goals. Any alleged coded language is simply an attempt to misrepresent my message. Hope you all are paying attention to these conversations between T4 and Mr. Simon. So Simon is stating categorically that my statement over time has been peaceful. My statement is to have a peaceful dialogue with the government of Nigeria. My aim and ambition is to actualize this USB without any form of violence. Yes. So T4 continued by saying, but the timing of your statement and the actions of your followers raise serious questions. How can you deny any connection? Simon continued or responded by saying, I'm not denying that there are individuals who may have been inspired by my words, but that does not make me responsible for their actions. I am a content creator, not a terrorist. My aim is to inform and inspire, not to incite violence. As you can see, this is a wonderful rendition coming from Simon. He has answered all of the questions coming from this witness cleanly. And mind you, this witness is a police officer. Yes, this guy he investigated Simon. He led the department that investigated Simon and every other single thing within. So he knew what he was supposed to ask. He knew the kind of questions he should ask. And I'm pretty sure he was anticipating these responses coming from Simon, because after this whole conversation, that is when T4 started to hit Simon decisively with pure proofs and pure evidence. This is a massive one. This is a very, very interesting one. This happens to be one of the most interesting days in the courtroom. Yes. So at this point, T4 brought out a document, a different set of documents from that Exhibit 1. And this is where he started throwing direct punches at Simon. This is when he started bringing out tweets, very, very inciting tweets of Simon, that it's going to be very, very difficult